you mentioned fear in your talk and how important and how many people get affected by that. Would you agree that step number one is to acknowledge that there is fear in a way?
Yeah, well, it comes out, right, in people's actions. And so after a while, you work with a lot of entrepreneurs and you are one yourself, and you start to realize that the only thing that ever holds us back is what's inside our head. And all these fears are subconscious for the most part. Like, we're not even aware of them necessarily. So it's not something that you necessarily can approach head on with somebody, right? But it is a matter of, in stepping into a more conscious life, understanding and unraveling all those things that happened in our childhood. Like, we all have them. They're different stories, and they're stories that we've told ourselves about ourselves. And they're not even our own thoughts. You know, we got them from watching television. We got them from overhearing our parents. We got them in all these different ways. But they inform our actions in a way that we're not even in control of. And that's, you know, actually just not helpful, right? So in stepping into this and really unraveling those things and learning how to let go of them, just literally let go of them, allows people to step into the light and step into their true destiny.
So you had the amazing experience of laying on a banana leaf under these stars to come up with this revelation that there's this thing called fear, and it's been getting in your way. So how have you been able to help others see this without the banana leaf and the stars?
Well, I'd recommend the banana leaf for everybody, but this is my 5th business. And here's what I know. Entrepreneurship is up here. Our success is up here. And we have so many different subconscious fears. And I work with many entrepreneurs, both men and women. But I started a podcast after returning from the Amazon called Wings of Inspired Business. Much for this reason, because I thought women were not only succeeding in silence, we were also being held back by fear in a really interesting way. We were thinking that we had to do it all, to have it all. So getting stuck on these task treadmills, running faster and faster and faster in place, but still ultimately playing small. So why was that? Seeing procrastination in women, but mostly it was perfectionism, which is fear in a pretty pink bow. And I wanted to unravel that. And in all the interviews that I do on Wings of Inspired Business with women who have 7-figure, 8-figure, 9-figure, 10-figure businesses, they've all overcome fear. So we spend a lot of time discussing this. And I've learned the way to help women really put on their wings and fly and get past that kind of fear of failure or fear of success often that we have by really helping each other lift as we climb. Because I understood in the Amazon, in entrepreneurship, doing the podcast, that I was not alone.
So you've gone through 5 different businesses, and it sounds like this last one, you've really tapped into that 6-year-old girl, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that journey and the difference between what you're doing today versus what you were doing before?
What's so interesting is you get old enough and you start to see where all the different, seemingly divergent things converge. And the connection between the 6-year-old me and the me now is the choreographer. I mean, the way my brain works, I can really see the whole table. I can see everything. I can see the moves. I can see how different things connect. And I think, I mean, Steve Jobs said this very well. If you go back to what he was saying about how he could be interested in computers and calligraphy at the same time, it didn't really make any sense. But then it comes together in Apple, and you see that in their design. So I feel the connective tissue between me as a 6-year-old and me now is I was in the light then, but I'm in the light now in a different way. It's about enabling other people to be in the light, to really step into their full consciousness.
So it's almost like the perfect storm. Everything that you've done leading up to today has empowered you to be who you are today with your fifth business. So if there was one takeaway that you during your media days, one lesson that you learned that you apply today, what would that be?
You know, I interviewed Steve Jobs as a 23-year-old correspondent for the Times of London. And it was pretty cool because he told me I asked great questions, you know. But I've interviewed world leaders, I've interviewed, you know, major actresses, I mean, even Twiggy, you know, all these people. And they would share their deepest personal story with me, whether on television as a news anchor, or whether in my newspaper days or now on the podcast. And yet I wasn't sharing anything about me. And it took me years. I mean, really, even now, this is still new for me. It's still a new thing to be able to share that I was in this disastrous marriage with this person that just completely demeaned me and destroyed my confidence. And while I was in that, my face to the world was like one of those Facebook highlight reels. Like nobody knew I was going through that. I think I felt such intense shame inside that how could this strong woman who'd achieved so much be suffering this and suffering it silently? And it led me to this epiphany that so many of us as women feel that we have to wear a mask, that we have to be a certain way. And it ties back into the perfectionism as well. Like perfect clothes, perfect hair, the house has to be perfect. I've got to do it all, do it all, do it all, to have it all. It's just so overwhelming. And I think I finally somehow found the courage, really, to defeat the fear of other people maybe thinking that if they knew that about me, they'd think less of me. And I realized that it's actually they think more of you when they really see, because we all do have things that we go through that are really, really hard. And so much of overcoming fear is, again, staring that down and just walking through it and really walking through those like feelings of like fear or shame or whatever, that somehow people aren't going to like us. And by the way, women in business, we want to be liked so badly, and sometimes that can hold us back too.
So it's actually the opposite. To be able to share authentically about your experiences, you get to create this emotional connection with people, and women are really good at that.
Yeah,
Right.
It just took me so long to be able to do it.
You have all this experience in the media world, and we know how this is a completely revolutionary movement. You know, there's podcasts today that didn't exist, you know, a few years ago, and there's all this change on how people are consuming information. So tell us a little bit about how has your experience in the media world led you to doing what you're doing today, and what are you leveraging to really bring eyes and ears to what you're doing?
Well, I've always believed that the best content is conversation, is connection. And the technology didn't really exist for that before, but it does now. And through all these different companies, you know, I've built media companies, I've built social media companies, data analytics companies, crowdsourcing technology, mobile app companies. And what's interesting is as this all converges, there's so much opportunity. As I look around and as a podcaster myself and knowing so many people in the podcast world, there are a lot of content creators out there creating amazing content, but they're not being discovered. Moreover, they're having a hard time discovering their audience. They have very little visibility from just download data as to who's actually listening or viewing. And as a result, it's very difficult for them to create those communities where content can be conversation and connection. That's the transformational piece. And that's one of the things that my company, Wings Media, is solving. You know, it's solving that, and moreover, once we're able to really see who our audience is and really understand them, it allows content creators to actually be paid fair value for the podcasts that they create. And moreover, it also makes it more efficient for the advertisers and the sponsors because they don't have to do that anymore. They can know.
So we have a signature question at the proof, and basically in 3 words, what would your meaning of life be?
Be the lighthouse.
Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, I talked about how we can all be in the spotlight. And when we're in the spotlight, it's all me, 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 me. When you're the lighthouse, you're showing the way for others. You're creating value for them. You're helping them into their highest purpose. You're helping them into consciousness.
Beautiful. Melinda, thank you so much for being on our stage and sharing your personal story. And are there any last words of wisdom or any gifts to the audience that you'd like to impart?
Oh my goodness, well thank you, Dan. It's such a pleasure to be here. And I just, when you have those 3 o'clock in the morning fears, just confront them, let them go. Just let them go. We have so much that we carry with us, old stories that we've told ourselves that aren't even true. They're not even true. They're what our schools told us. They're what politicians told us. They're what, I don't know, we overheard on a TV show when we were 3. All that stuff. Just be willing to let it go. And particularly for women, don't let yourself be isolated. In business, one of the most important things is to have mentors and have communities and have coaches. Invest in that. Invest in yourself. You're your own best asset.
Well, thank you so much.